Everyone is turning on Microsoft. The power users are sick of the cavalcade of bugs that won't end. Ridiculous stuff like being booted off a terminal because you're not signed in on your Microsoft account. That's insane. But even for regular users, they don't understand why Microsoft keeps trying to get them to talk to Copilot and to use Edge. And the story now is that the one group of people who could actually effect some change seem to be losing faith, and that's the investors. You see, by some metrics, Windows market share is at its lowest point in decades, and between SteamOS, a growing Linux ecosystem, and the simple reality that most people can do their work on a phone or a tablet, the competition are not waiting around to let Microsoft recover. So today, we're going to talk about what's up with Windows, starting with Microsoft's very bad week. Last week's earnings call was absolutely brutal. The stock price tanked over doubts about their AI commitments and their ability to actually deliver on those commitments. There's a lot there and a lot to talk about with funding in AI, but not really the focus of this video. What did matter though is nearly $400 billion in market cap was wiped out. So that's lovely, but internally things aren't really much better for them. Call of Duty's stumble last year from first to fifth best-selling game in the US seems to have single-handedly dropped gaming revenue by 5%. That's fairly bad, but at the very least they didn't do a big layoff wave in gaming this quarter. But of course, today's real thing is Windows. It's kind of the backbone of so much of this. And Windows is barely making more revenue than Xbox, but it's the thing driving every bad headline this year. I mean, every week something else breaks. It's honestly a bit of a comedic spectator sport by this stage. But here's the weird thing. Their Windows OEM and devices revenue was actually up 5% year on year. But that's as businesses kept migrating off Windows 10 before support ends, which very much makes you think, okay, is that revenue number going up because you're pulling support for the thing that people are using right now and kind of forcing them to upgrade to the new one? The new one that is generating all the bad headlines. Yeah, it's quite something. So that's one reason for Windows going up. Of course, another one is the whole hardware panic going on. There's probably some panic buying because all the prices are skyrocketing. That's probably good for Windows. But obviously, they can't do this forever. Windows 11 absolutely is a problem. So what are they actually going to do about it? I'll begin with a quote. "We need to improve Windows in ways that are meaningful to people. This year, you will see us focus on addressing pain points we hear consistently from customers, improving system performance, reliability, and the overall experience of Windows." Those words came from Microsoft's president of Windows and Devices when they were speaking to The Verge, specifically to Tom Warren. And that reflects what Tom Warren's sources have been telling him, which is that Microsoft is actually reacting to all of the bad news. They basically claim that developers are swarming core issues, with engineers being assigned to resolve as many problems as possible. Basically, because Microsoft knows, they know there are problems, and they know the people feeling those problems the most are the power users. And obviously, it goes beyond bugs. There's also the Copilot thing, because Copilot's in everything you touch, whether you want it there or not. And that's where I go to a report from Zach Bowden of Windows Central. He's got sources suggesting that, quote, "The company is now reevaluating its AI strategy on Windows 11 and plans changes to streamline or even remove certain AI features where they don't make sense." Long story short, they noticed everyone's pissed. They maybe noticed that you don't need Copilot in Paint. Maybe you don't need it in Notepad. And I don't bring those up idly. They're actually named as being under review for their Copilot integrations. It's as if Microsoft up at corporate just thought, AI is brilliant, we'll put it everywhere, without actually thinking about the customer experience. And really, when I think about AI stuff going bad, adoption not necessarily being great within businesses, so much of it seems like it is just that. Business people kind of ramming it in down the chain. Now, obviously, none of this is to say they're stopping their AI integration. Absolutely not. I mean, Microsoft still needs to prove that their AI tech is internally viable. There's been some really funny stories, actually, about people within Microsoft basically going to use Claude Code because it was better than the Copilot coding stuff, and that apparently being successful. But then orders coming down from the top saying, actually, Copilots really came on. We want you to use it for more things. That's all been, pretty damn funny. And if even your own internal devs prefer using, say, Claude Code to the Copilot stuff, I mean, that really tells you it's not time to ram it out to mass consumer products. They now clearly know people are complaining about how hard the AI is being pushed, and they want people back on their side. Hardly a surprise, after the year they've had, how could they not? And to be clear, this was a bad year. And if you're not feeling great about Microsoft, I think you may enjoy the next segment of this video. As 2026 started, Microsoft had to issue 2 separate emergency patches for Windows 11, and that was just to fix bugs that the latest regular patch had introduced. First, machines couldn't shut down. That's lovely. I mean, pull the cord out, but that's insane. Then they were crashing because of an issue with Dropbox and OneDrive storage. And of course, it doesn't stop there. There's still no fix for the current crash problem that Windows has verified is happening because of its latest patch. This is a problem that they've only got because those users had to roll back the last security patch, and their operating systems didn't properly do that, which has basically left everything being a mess. So, you know, patches breaking things, fixes breaking even more things, and then rollbacks breaking even more and sometimes different things. And all of that has followed a year where not a single month went by without reports of bugs and issues. And look, as PC gamers, the phrase, works in my machine is one that we're all kind of used to. Can be a bit frustrating, can't it? So yeah, you may never have experienced these problems. Maybe the security patches just aren't relevant to you because you don't really have security concerns. But none of that has stopped Microsoft from being raked over the coals, and none of that has stopped businesses seriously being worried. And the thing to remember here is scale. Windows is truly massive, so an issue that maybe only hits 5% of users is actually still huge. You may never see it. Most people watching this channel may never see it, but the absolute number of people who do see it is probably going to be in the millions. Because again, this is at such a large scale. And when the problems are this serious, and when power users are the people most likely to hit those problems, the effect is amplified. I mean, you go onto Twitter and you see people losing work because Terminal just basically killed itself because of some sort of Microsoft account authentication problem. That's absolutely mad. And it means people are considering other options. And with hardware prices climbing, a lot of people are maybe realizing that they don't need a Windows PC at all. I mean, much day-to-day work is apps and web apps. It can be done on just about anything. God forbid even Chrome OS. But for everyone else, like maybe those of us who care about PC gaming, there's the drive toward Linux. That's where things are really heating up and getting interesting. And because it's the power users and tastemakers that are doing the switching, well, just like with you hearing about the bugs and problems, you're going to hear about them making the switch. Even though, if we look at the real numbers, say per the Steam hardware survey, we do actually see that the percentage of people on Linux is still really quite small. But the momentum is shifting, and someone is waiting to catch it. The good news, in my view, is that Windows' current market share as a desktop OS is the worst that it's been in decades. That makes me happy, but even at its lowest, it's about 67% of the market right now, and it's never dropped below 60%. It's absolutely huge. Still, the remaining 33% is the entire non-Windows world. I just want you to think about the default effect. For so many people, Windows is just computer. I mean, maybe they know that Mac exists, but that's probably the extent of things. So if you're the type of person considering an OS switch, you're probably closer to being a power user than you'd think. So congratulations! And it also means, yeah, you're the sort of person who is actually more likely to move. That is why, even though we're probably not going to see a humongous switch of Windows literally crumbling, I think we will see a fair amount of power users move. And that is why Linux devs are trying to make it easier than ever. Now, SteamOS is the obvious thing to talk about. I am going to talk about that, but there's another professional use case bit that I do want to call out as well. But as for Steam, it's the biggest elephant in the room here. It's Linux fork designed with the ease and the polish Valve's basically known for, but it is only the tip of the spear. You see, behind it is something more important. It's partnerships like the Open Gaming Collective, which is a group of Linux gaming projects that are all building a shared technical foundation so that, in their own words, a win for one project becomes a win for everyone. So the goal is simple then. It's to make Linux less scary, more compatible, and ready for the wave of interest that SteamOS and Steam machines are creating. We could, soon enough, get to a world where you could buy a new gaming PC with something like SteamOS pre-installed on it. That would be big. I mean, even GOG are saying that, quote, Linux is the next major frontier whenever they're hiring engineers for GOG Galaxy, which is their launcher product. And that's because gaming is basically a wedge here. right? It's a wedge issue. We'll get in there first. A bunch of problems will be solved for gaming, and that will make it easier for everyone else. And as soon as enough of us are there for gaming, then broader software compatibility will follow. Not just for games, but for the tools that normal people use every day. And that is where there's actually a really cool update. Basically, support for Adobe products on Linux. Now, it's not official, it's basically just engineers being absolutely cracked and awesome. But think about it. For so many people who are video editors, who don't want to go in the Mac direction, yeah, you have to use Windows. That absolutely sucks. But we're actually nearing a real world where someone could easily swap over to Linux and have their professional software still work. And if we hit that broadly enough, then I think the Windows market share could seriously be damaged. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. I do think Microsoft are broadly terrible. I think Windows has been broadly terrible for a very, very long time. Even as someone who basically appreciates design being basically competent, you open different parts of Windows and see different design languages in different places. Sometimes you've got to use the new control panel, sometimes you've got to use the old control panel. It's an absolute nightmare to the point where you think, this is one of the largest companies on Earth, one of the most resourced companies on Earth. How has their operating system, literally the product that made the company, how has it been so shit for so long? And because of how heavily they've benefited from the default effect, we've all had to deal with that shit. And that has actually just held personal computing back. So yeah, this is one where I'll readily say my biases. I want Windows to suffer. I want more people to move away from it. I think the world of computing would be better that way. Here's the state of play as I see it. A better Linux and more pressure to make a PC a worthwhile object to own will mean a better Windows. That means that regardless of what you need a computer for, you'll have a better time. That pressure and that competition is good. It is invaluable because we are seeing Microsoft actually being forced to change. And pressure has worked before. As an example, from staff forcing Microsoft to end some military contracts, just like, say, pressure from SteamOS is forcing their hand on portable OS improvements. That being said, the Asus ROG Ally software situation is still honestly something that feels like an alpha, so I do think they've basically fumbled the bag in that. But to move forward from that, we've now got pressure, not just from gaming, we've got pressure from everyone complaining about the forced compliance with AI. That's pushing Microsoft to rethink their entire rollout. The pressure is working. Bugs are getting attention. The AI push is being walked back. That is good. But here's the real thing. Here's the real thing that's the big takeaway of this video. If Windows degrading is the symptom, then Microsoft is the problem. Microsoft as a corporation. Microsoft as an engineering firm. And you can't fix that problem with a press release. They're saying some of the right words. I don't trust their ability to deliver. Neither should you. And if we want desktop computing to be in a better state, then we need to get away from this goddamn company and explore other alternatives. I think it is as simple as that. And if you want a story that's not simple, but is, my god, absolutely fascinating, the downfall of Ashes of Creation is kind of wild. Watch this video next, you'll learn all about it and the insanity, the sheer insanity